And a very warm welcome to the Katie Hopkins Show this Wednesday, the 10th of May. Would you even believe we're 10 days in? Coming up in the show today, more on the smalling, as we called it yesterday, this time involving a smoking ban. But first, a real listener's dilemma, a couple of them actually, on dealing with attacks from the trans mafia. So jump on the chat. Have you been targeted by the woke? Has the mob come for you, and what did you do? How did you solve the problem? That's tntradio.live, and not forgetting our top 3 stories out of the UK. Yesterday there was a cycle war raging on the chat at tntradio.live, so do join it or give me a ring. Here's the numbers that you need to call.
Our lines are open. From the US and Canada, call 1-888-201-6425. From the UK, call 033-0024-1026. And from Australia and New Zealand, call 1-800-670-310. Free speech is alive and well on today's News Talk, TNT Radio.
It certainly is. Speak your mind, say as you see it, and feel free to disagree. That's the key principles of the Katie Hopkins Show here at TNT Radio. Do go to the chat. So I'm asking for your help. 20 minutes past the hour, we're going to be talking about a listener who really feels, they've dealt with the woke mob before, they've dealt with it like we all have, but this one person has really got to them. This is very typical, and it's typically one person that somehow just manages to get through that little chink in your armor. So go to the TNT chat. Just reading here, I was cancelled as a teacher over the trans stuff. I stood my ground. I refused to apologize. They paid me off and bought my silence. Never apologize for telling the truth. So that's on the chat. So do jump on there and also share if you're struggling. So if you are being attacked, or you feel like you're under fire, or you've got this one particular sort of weirdo stalker that has you in their sights and is just surround sound sort of getting at you in every which way. And we can all pretend like, oh, just ignore it. It doesn't matter. Personally, I think that's the least helpful advice you can give anyone. Just ignore it, because it's just words and it doesn't cut through. And I know from my own personal perspective, that is not how you don't get to just ignore it. You may as well just shout at the wall if that's the advice, my personal opinion. So do get onto the chat. How do you deal with very personal attacks coming at you by an individual or the woke mob or the trans mafia or whatever? Okay, so that's coming up shortly, and then later in the hour, a smoking ban. I want to discuss that if we get to that. But first up, my top 3 stories out of the UK, and I need to share with you something even more local than the top 3 stories out of the UK, which is my very village, would you believe? Here at HQ, we were the epicenter, we were the hub, we were the bullseye. Yes, I think we get the principle, Katie. You were the centre of it. Okay, fine. You love to be the centre of things. Get over yourself, you massive narcissist. I hear you. I have that voice in my head that controls me. Of the flash floods in the UK yesterday. My village. It's not mine. My pub. It's not mine. It's my local. The farm that my daughter learned her skills on. We were the epicenter of the flood, and I'm not proud of it. Take a listen to me in my jolly car observing the rain. That's crazy. That's the neighbour's topsoil. So that's me in my little disability panda. It's not actually a disability car. It's just a very ugly car that looks a bit like a disabled person's car. And that's my poor little panda windscreen wipers going like the clappers, going like they're about to fall off. There's hail coming down. I know we don't have American hail, and I've been in American hail. And American hail would kill me. I don't have a skull, as you know. If an American hail got me smack on the top of my little bare brain, that would be the end of the things. So anyway, the hail's coming down, and I'm just at the bottom of my drive there, and the neighbour's topsoil, all of the neighbour's garden, is basically whizzing by me in a massive river. Like all of the garden is going down, the topsoil's going off, and if you know about topsoil, that stuff shifts itself. So a little bit later, I drove down as far as I could to the village, which is down at the bottom of the hill that I'm on the top of. And there is the farm that my daughter earned her skills at with an elderly couple. There is the pub underwater. There is the primary school, kids stuck, unable to get back, or parents to get to their kids at the primary school, which has been on the floodplain for as long as, I've known, and just, homes underwater. And if you've ever been involved with a flood or any kind of water really coming through your home, it's not as bad when it comes from pipes in your ceiling, because at least it's clean. But when it comes from rivers and when it comes from overground and when it's that water, it's just pure filth. But essentially, long story short, floods here, flash floods, southwest water, same day, people are underwater, deliver a leaflet to homes, save every drop. Literally lecturing homeowners on how they need to save water. At the same time, we're on our hands and knees, school children are stuck, the pub's underwater. We receive a leaflet that we've paid for saying save every drop. I know. It's unbelievable. And you know what? People can say, oh, the climate's changing, all they want. You can scream, oh, climate emergency. No, I'm sorry. Totally disagree with you. I totally disagree. I've been here a long time. We've seen floods before, and it's always okay. This is about councils building all over us. Where I used to live, a house alone on its own, is now surrounded. A local town up the road, a new town. Every day I go there and there's another 4,000 houses up on that thing. I don't even know where I am when I drive through it. A plan in this village that I live in, which is, whatever, but they want to put 100 houses where there should probably be 2. You keep shoving solar panels all over farmland so it can't be farmed correctly. You keep building over farmland. You keep taking farmland from farmers. You keep making it such that farmers don't matter anymore, or that farmers are the problem. Farmers are not the problem. As we saw yesterday, farmers are the solution to the problem. It's a farmer who's out in his blooming JCB rescuing the school kids. So try blaming farmers. It isn't farmers that are the problem. It's councils flogging off our land. And precisely how that happens here, I didn't mean for this to be quite such a rant, but I've just suddenly, it's just triggered a thing. It's that councils are selling off land where we live on floodplains here. And the very field where they want to build in this village hasn't got drainage. It's the reason it hasn't been built on before is because it doesn't have drainage. And now that's been overruled because they so want the cash from building these hideous houses that aren't even attractive, which really annoys me as well, that they're willing to build on the land that they previously said was inappropriate because it doesn't have drainage. And then they wonder why there are floods at the bottom of our hill. I mean, truly, they build these houses, as you may know. You see loads and loads of cheap houses going up. And you know what's happening. That's social housing. Fine. People need houses. Fine. I can buy that. But they sell that social housing to places like Birmingham, councils that don't have space to build social housing but need to put people somewhere. And they import those people from Birmingham, wherever. It doesn't matter where from. It's not a Birmingham thing. And they import them into our towns where they've built these ridiculous homes without proper drainage, without proper systems, houses that don't last 5 minutes because they were never built properly. And they take the cash for social housing. And what happens is that our locals and our farmers end up with floods on their land. And this is the nonsense that we're all part of. And all we're going to hear today is people screaming, climate change. So I welcome someone from Southwest Water to come to my door today. I welcome them, because it'd be good if I wasn't venting on TNT, but instead I was venting on them, wouldn't it? My top 3 stories we are going to get to. You know what? We're just going to power through, but we will get to all of them. We might have to hop to the other side of the commercial break for them. And I also want to come to our listeners' dilemma. So what we will do, my sweeties, is we will hop briefly to a commercial break. We will be right back with my top 3 stories and our listeners' dilemma. Go nowhere apart from the TNT chat, tntradio.live. Do jump on there and tell me how you have dealt with the woke mob. How have you dealt with them when they have come for you? So go to tntradio.live and have your say. Go nowhere. We'll be right back. My name is Katie Hopkins, and this is TNT Radio.
Our lines are open. From the U.S. and Canada, call 1-888-201-6425. From the U.K., call 033-0024-1026. And from Australia and New Zealand, call 1-800-670-310. Free speech is alive and well on today's News Talk, TNT Radio.
It certainly is, my lovelies. Do jump on the chat, tntradio.live, tntradio.live, and let me know how you deal with the wokerati when they came for you. So people are talking about my flash floods rant. Exactly the same weather here in England as it was 50 years ago today. Yes, exactly, totally. Things haven't really changed at all. That's what I say. It's a very nice sunny day here in Surrey. Oh, well, good for you. Britain, the only country where it's too wet and too dry at the same time. Yes, absolutely. Concrete doesn't absorb water. Fields do. Yes, see. That's why we're TNT people, because we are smart and we know things. It's been 7.5 months here near Bristol since we have had one day over 20 degrees C. That's 230 days. You know, that is precisely the point I was moaning about to Lovely Mark the other day. Nearly 9 months since my skin, which is flaking from me as we speak. I'm sat in a virtual sandstorm of dead dead skin cells, because I just cannot get any sun. I don't even think there must be any vitamins in my body whatsoever. And people want to say it's climate change. Oh my gosh. Right. Top 3 stories. Otherwise, this show really has lost all structure today and I will be a failure as a broadcaster. Top 3. Number 1, baby born with DNA from 3 people. I completely understand. If I had a genetic disease, I would want my child not to have it. In fact, one of my daughters has a gene deletion. I was advised not to have my child, and I was advised to have a termination at 8.5 months because I was told she might be born a monster and she might not live 1 day or 1 hour. We can talk of this another time. This is too dark for today. But I do understand people that need to escape their own genetic issues and don't want to pass them to their children. So a baby has been born using 3 people's DNA. So they take 2 parents' DNA, they take a donor DNA, and they mix them together. I think there's probably a more scientific term from that, and out comes a baby. And suddenly my whole little, even though I've been in the most darkest depths of this pit of genetic abnormalities, believe me, I've been left scraped. I'd be scraped from the road in my horror. However, there's something about 3 people being used to make a baby that makes me go, I don't think so. And there's a particular phrase in this news article that made my spider senses go. And when my spider senses go, it is always a sign. I should always listen to your spider senses. If there's any young people listening, particularly females, but any young people listening, if your spider senses tell you no, they should come first over all other senses. So it is actually your additional sense. People say you have 5 senses. Your 6th sense, your spider sense, tells you better than anything. Something in your heart tells you, listen to it. And my spider sense says something strange. And then there's this phrase being used in the article regarding making a baby from 3 people. A, no one's talked about it. B, the Human Fertilization and Embryology Authority, HFEA. Don't like the sound of that. I don't like anyone who calls themselves an authority. And I don't really like anybody that calls themselves the human authority, because that has a whole darker meaning straight away for me. And then get this as the quote. So they weren't talking about this baby made by 3 people. The Guardian found out about it and did an FOI, Freedom of Information request. Guess what they said? Less than 5 babies have been born as of 20th of April 2023. Less than 5 babies have been born. Can I just say, at what point in any of your life, if you're a mum or a dad, at what point have you ever described a baby in a count of less than 5? At what point have you rounded up? Oh, how many children have you got? I've got less than 10. Have you ever done that? I mean, just a question. I've got less than 3, but more than 1. I mean, what is this weird talk? Less than 5? Yes, that's quite an odd way to talk about an actual human being, isn't it? And they say the secrecy is to protect the family or families involved. I say, what the hell got born? And are we now not calling a baby if it's less than 5? Did half of one get born? Did 2, but they had 6 legs? I don't even know. But my spider sense says this is not going anywhere good fast. Like AI and the guy that just had to run away from his own monster because he's scared of what it might become. And I certainly, if you know anybody that works at the Human Authority, the Human Fertilization and Embryology Authority, that's a scary title, isn't it? Last time I looked, get stuck in a doorway, have a baby 9 months later. I don't think we need interfering with at this level. You could argue, Katie, I could use this service. I'd be very grateful. It would save me the trauma of what I went through. And I also personally understand that view. Point 2, Tucker Carlson moves to Twitter. So Fox News host Tucker, my mate Tux, has announced he's doing a new show on Twitter. So people are celebrating that because Tucker will be back. And Tucker is saying you can't have a free society if people aren't allowed to say what they think is true. Elon says it's not actually a deal with him. Tucker will be subject to the same rules as other content creators. All sorts of questions coming in from me here. And Carlson says he'll be bringing a new version of his show back to Twitter. He says Twitter has long served as a place where our national conversation incubates and develops. Twitter's not a partisan site. This is Tucker. Twitter, everybody's allowed here, and we think that's a good thing. So I'm kind of all right with that, except for the fact that I'm still blooming well banned on Twitter and have been for the best part of half a decade, and I'm never and not allowed to go back. There was never an offence. There was never a breaking of a Twitter rule. So I take issue with Tucker's idea that Twitter is everybody's allowed here. No, you're not. You're not if you're Katie Hopkins. And please don't. People say, well, how did you get banned? What was it that you said that got people? And if you ask that question, how did you get banned? Like, you are way behind the start line, guys. If you say, well, why did that happen, Katie? What did you say? No. You're way behind the start line. You have to say, who are the most powerful people who didn't want you on Twitter, and how did they get to Twitter? Then you're nearly at the start line. And in my case, Board of Deputies, head of the Jewish churches, synagogues, whatever you want to call them, chief rabbi, the head of the Muslim Council, so an alliance of Muslim Council and heads of the Jewish synagogues, and a couple of famous people, because you need them for a bit of, pizzazz, bit of press. So Rachel Riley from Countdown. If you look behind that lady, you'll find a lot. So heads of the Muslim Council, heads of Jewish Synagogues UK, Rachel Riley, who's their celebrity face, working in tandem with the Wokerati at London Twitter HQ, had me removed. And I believe there is also a police element to that as well. So I get to Tucker's point that Twitter's for everyone, but clearly it isn't. And I also have another observation that is not being made anywhere else. which is as much as we might celebrate. Well, that's it. Tucker's free. He is free. He's broken free from the shackles of Fox, where you can't say anything without signing up to say what you'll say. Well, I'm banned from all the outsiders where with Rowan that I used to be on a great deal. Rowan knows I'm not allowed on that show because I'm on his ban list as well. But anywho, my concern is that Tucker goes to Twitter, right? And then I see Crowder, Stephen Crowder. Doesn't matter if you don't know these names, but just know that they're big, like figureheads. They have a large following. They can help the movement. If we were to hold the line together, this is a powerful bunch of people. Stephen Crowder goes to Rumble. So Rumble by Stephen Crowder. Spotify obviously bought Joe Rogan, so they have Joe. Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro. He bought Candace. I think he bought Jordan Peterson. And then there's Ben. So now Twitter has bought Tucker. And then if you go to OANN, like a One American News Network, the replacement for Fox. So they have a number of other hosts. And then you have Truth Social. And Rumble with whomever. Do you notice the point I'm trying to make? Do you see what's happening? Is this inability of our side to work together, the chiefs somehow not being able to be chiefs together and coordinate and become a unified platform, means that we have, let me just count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 9 platforms, each with their star performer. And that's before you do any deep diving into that. So in order for our people to follow someone, they have to now follow the individual to a different platform. And how many platforms can you realistically expect an audience to follow? And that's my concern. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, and I'm not trying to underestimate our side. But very often when I'm on the road, people say, Katie, why aren't you on Katie, why aren't you on Telegram? Katie, why aren't you on Truth Social? Katie, why aren't you doing more on Rumble? Katie, why aren't you doing... And it's like, guys, you have to pick a lane. There's only so much energy you can thrust out into the universe. And my concern here is now we have competing channels with people who we need to be unified on a consistent platform. And one day, of course, that platform should be TNT Radio. I'm just saying. And my final top 3 before we go to, which we will go to, is the listener's dilemma. It is coming. How do you deal with the wokerati? How do you deal with the mob when they come for you? How? I'm just looking at the chat. Please do jump on the chat. I want to break the chat. So that's my plan. I want to break the chat at TNT Radio. I want to make it so that the chat has to be significantly invested in order that it becomes multifunctional. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but I do know I want to break the chat. So get on the chat. Help me break it. TNTradio.live. Overwhelm the chat. Katie, you rattled the power structure that they had to shut you up. Yeah, they did. So there's a Europol thing as well involved in my Twitter silencing. So the same kind of international police sort of statement or policy against me, the same thing that got, who was it? Brittany, the Canadian journalist that was banned from the UK for hate speech. No, let me get this correct. Future hate speech, as yet unsaid, that might upset local communities. That's what they banned her for from the UK. Future hate speech, as yet unsaid, that might upset local communities, and by that they mean the Muslim Massive in the UK. So that's the policing unit that also policed me. So that's what we're up against, future hate speech as yet unsaid. Katie, you nailed it. The conservative movement is diluted and not consolidated or focused enough. Yeah. And so super proud of Tucker, super love him, absolutely support all of our side. Outside, this is what I call inside school, right? Where I'm talking to you. This is inside our house. We shut the front door. We're inside the house. We're talking like this. Outside school, it's great. Tucker's on Twitter. It's great. Stephen Crowder's on Rumble. It's great. It's great. The conservative movement has never been more powerful. This is brilliant. We're on so many different platforms. It's great. So outside school, that's my message. Consistent, hold the line, support our boys, support, push forwards. Never, ever turn to your navel, never attack our own side. always line of strength, line of one. Inside school, here in the TNT chat, I can say about my concern, which is that you cannot ask an audience to be in 15 different places. You are missing your audience. You are not bringing yourself to your audience. It's the reason I stand in blooming farm cafe shops in the back end of nowhere doing my stand-up. We have to bring us to people. You can't ask people to be on all of these platforms. Okay, so you get what I'm trying to say. Last story that I want to briefly touch on before we go to the listener dilemma. Get on the chat. How do you deal with the word karate? TNTradio.live. Break the chat. It's Eurovision. And you can say, Katie, I'm sick of it. And I understand my father is as well. My father is utterly crestfallen that his beloved Radio 2, where he used to listen to a gentleman called Ken Bruce, doing a very fabulous competition. Do you know what I'm talking of? Ken Bruce on Pop Master. What do I mean by break the chat? I mean, get on the chat and overwhelm it with people to the point it just collapses. Like TNT chat is no longer available. TNT chat has blown up. I want you to blow up TNT chat. I want you to overwhelm it with people so much that it has a technical meltdown that has to be fixed by Mike sweating in his underpants somewhere in Australia. That's what I'm saying. That's the sort of excitement we need. Not Mike in his underpants, just to clear that up. Eurovision. So my father is bereft because Radio 2 has become a junk site of nonsense, including Eurovision. And I do think there is some darkness to Eurovision, or the sort of satanic references or whatever. I do think it's a bit weird. And I also think, it's filled with people who are morons and brain dead. So there's that. However, I also think there's some joy in the escapism of Eurovision. I think there's some joy in the lunacy of it. And I think there's some joy in people just being in a room together with bright lights, ridiculous music, and having a dance around in silly outfits. You know what? We all need a break from life. I choose red wine. These people choose Eurovision, and I'm kind of all right with it. I watched a part last night when I got back from doing the cleanup of the flooded village. I was just too brain dead and angry at South West Water to do anything apart from drink and watch Eurovision. A few highlights for me. Number 1, Croatia. Absolutely splendid. Someone said Croatia is like the village people on crack. And they absolutely were. They're made up of Damir Martinovic, Zoran Prodanojevic, Ivan Bojocic, and Drazen Balanic, and Medjic. I think I got those names perfectly correct, actually. That's the Croatian team. I mean, goodness knows what they were singing, because I just couldn't understand any of it or the performance. But they have said, should they win Eurovision, they will perform their final, as in their sort of celebratory song. They'll perform it naked. And I'm just saying, in a world of rules and regulations, in a world that is relentlessly closing in on us, and in a world that lacks humour and mirth, I think having Croatia perform Billy Bollock naked would be an excellent way to show two fingers up, really, to EU and all their rules and regs. It's sort of the opposite of a face mask, isn't it? Getting your genitals out and waving them around at Eurovision, which I'm pretty sure is what goes on at Eurovision most of the time anyway. Ireland, I don't know if you were watching, darlings. Let me know if you were. Did you see Ireland? Anyone Irish on the chat, please? TNT Radio, tits, nipples, tits. Radio.live. Do go there if you were watching and you saw Ireland. Can I just say, slightly chubby Irish boy, child, thing, dressed in a gold lame jumpsuit, 2 sizes too small for him. And I think you might have to forgive me here. But I'm not entirely sure what's going on with Ireland's genitals. Please do help me on the chat if you saw this, because I need backup. My daughter said, "Why are you so obsessed by his genitals?" Which, fair point for a teenager. But essentially, he doesn't appear to have any in this gold lame jumpsuit. And then the seam was dividing what there was into into two parts. So the seam of the gold lame jumpsuit was dividing what was left of his testicular area into two parts. And it reminded me, I was very reminiscent of Ireland itself, Northern Ireland and the rest of Ireland. This is quite an obscure reference, and you'd need to have a certain kind of brain to be following this. But what I'm trying to argue is that the groin area of the Irish contender in the Eurovision was divided in the same way that Ireland is. And it's quite touching, isn't it? Quite beautiful. And what I want to play you as we just head towards a very, very short commercial break, because truly I've not been on the air long enough today for my tastes. As we go out into the commercial break, we're going to pedal out, not on a bike, because we had bike rows, didn't we? Oh, wait, tits, nipple, tits. Oh, twats, nipple, tits. Oh, that's the new acronym, according to Craig. Twat, nipple, tits. Really? So TNT, either way, just remember TNT. I would say Tango, November, Tango. But obviously we have to downgrade this for the rest of us. I'm going to play you out into the commercial break with the British entrance. Oh, not British. No, is it? It's English, isn't it? Because the Irish are out. So, no, British entry into Eurovision. Please take a listen to this. I want you to think about Shakespeare. I want you to think about Yeats. I want you to think about some of the glorious writers, Tennyson, of British history. Think about the eloquence of words. Think about the poetry that it is possible to create with the British language. Think about the vast lexicon that falls at your lips every day that you have the ability to use as you take a listen to this.
Stay with Katie Hopkins when you have something to say. Today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
Yes, we are back, my darlings. Thank you for jumping on the chat. You're legendary. We are going to deal with our listeners' dilemma next, as promised. But I've got a little bit of gossip here that I haven't said. But now I've explained my in-school, out-school theory. So you know that outside of school, outside of here, I hold the line. Inside school here at TNT, I'm telling you things that I don't say because I firmly believe anytime we're putting down our own side, we are fighting the wrong people. But let me just say, because it's on the chat, and I will be honest always on this show, on another matter, spiked online. So we were talking about the plethora. Did you like the Eurovision entry? Yeah, poetic, wasn't it? Beautiful. And so I wrote this song, ya-da-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da-da-da, and so I wrote this song. Yeah, beautiful. So let me tell you the gossip. On chat, someone says spiked online, blah, 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 blah. Brendan, is it? Brendan O'Neill, spiked online. I haven't ever said this, but I've known for a very, very, very long time. What shall we say? There are people on our side who do very well by being positioned on our side and who give the appearance of being on our side. They get booked for certain slots. They tiptoe very carefully, because they are not speaking from necessarily their heart. So it's not necessarily authentic. It's just a constructed contrivance of an argument that they're presenting that appears to come from our side. It allows them to be very calculating, to stay within the rules, to stay within the guidelines, to make sure they're not taken off any shows or off air or don't get off-commed like Naomi Wolf and Stein. But it allows them to make a very profitable industry out of being on our side. I wonder if I articulated that carefully enough. But that, to me, is spiked online. And that's exactly the game that Brandon O'Neill plays. And that's why they've gone for Bridgen. That's why they pull the argument strings that they pull, so that they allow themselves to stay inside the acceptable whilst masquerading as free speakers on, inverted commas, our side. And I've known that for ages, and it's hard to watch because people go, oh, it's great, looks Brandon, it's great. And it's hard to watch that, but I still would argue it's better to hold the line than it is to attack our own and this relentless need to always be having a go at someone else. I just don't think is that helpful, but I'm just responding to what's on chat, and I'm trying to do that honestly. Let me read you the dilemma. Katie, my love, I wanted to email you for some advice, blah, blah, blah. I've had a girl on Facebook calling me everything from homophobic, even though I'm gay, a bigot, and so on and so on. Normally, I take these attacks and let them get bored and move on. But this one individual has been very nasty and really spiteful. She's inboxed my Facebook friends with screenshots from a debate. And basically every name under the sun, she's called me transphobic because I don't believe actually in surgery for people to mutilate their own bodies. And she's used words like homophobia and transphobia. I'll send you some of the screenshots which she's done. I just wanted to ask how you deal with individuals like this. I've never been so annoyed and angry at a person. I'm normally a very calm and relaxed person. This is the dilemma I want to bring to you. And let me just say, this is exactly the point I'm making. There's just someone, usually, you can deal with thousands of people attacking you. You can deal with armies of people calling you names. Some days you're really good at it. But some days there is just this one person that can somehow seem to get to you, and it troubles you. And then the fact that this absolute lunatic is now on his, I mean, how does this happen? She has got onto my Facebook friends and is trying to tell them that I'm transphobic. How is someone else on your Facebook friend? I'm not on Facebook, but good Lord, that should be stopped. But what it is, it doesn't even matter about that per se, right? I'm asking you, what's the advice you give this guy? One person somehow managing to get under his skin. He's a gay guy. It's crazy what she said, but it doesn't matter because I said before, didn't I? You shouldn't have to have, I'm gay, therefore I can't be homophobic. You know, I'm a lesbian, so therefore I can't be a bad person. I've got a black husband, so I can't be racist. You shouldn't have to have that card in order for you not to be called names, because I don't have any of those things, but I'm not those things. But you shouldn't have to, I don't need to go and get a black husband to prove I'm not racist, right? But anyway, what's the advice for this guy? And it's not just ignore, because that's not helping. It's not working. He's tried that, and he's ridden this horse before. It's this one person that's somehow managing to get to him. I think probably by picking off his friends and being unkind and being brutish. And how do you deal with it when it comes at you? And I've always said it isn't about just ignore it, because I don't believe that's true. People say to me, you know, when they meet me, how do you deal with all the hate? How do you deal? And of course, hate for me has changed because people have sort of swung 180 and now go, Hopkins, she's all right. I used to think she was a twat. But it's how you deal with that. And it's never, for me, water off a duck's back, never. And it's never, oh, you've got a thick skin. You've got the hide of a rhino, people used to say. It's not at all, actually. Some of the most hurtful things can be in amongst thousands of comments of people hating on you. Or the time I went and was given the CUNT award to humiliate me. You know, some things are just ultra brutal. So that's a dilemma that I'm asking you to come up with answers for on chat, tntradio.live. How do you deal with it when you're overwhelmed by the hurt? And I have another dilemma as well here. I'm a 28-year-old woman from Northamptonshire. Sorry, nearly read that like an American. From Northamptonshire. I'm not going to lie, I never liked you. I love people who start their emails like this. I really do, because they're just, you can feel they're just sitting typing. Tap, 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 tap. Not going to lie, I never liked you. However, more recently, I've seen more and more of your videos, and frankly, I'm growing far more respectful of you. There's no need for that. I was happy with I don't like you, but that's really kind. I've had mental health issues since I can remember. Been lots of meds. 2 months ago, I came off the meds, having problems. I'm angry and frustrated, and I'm so scared. There's lots that's terrifying me. I want to make a change and help, but also I'm scared of protesting because of the repercussions it might have. I just came across your post on unexplained deaths across the UK since the COVID vaccine. Oh dear, there's a lot on people, isn't there? And I was never sure if I wanted the vaccine, as I didn't trust something that was brought into production so quickly. But the sheep that I am, I had my first one, and after that I didn't return. I won't lie, your video scared me. My father is 59 and was very on board with the vaccine rollout and received all of them. Can you give me any information on how to prevent these heart problems or a lifestyle that would lessen the risk? I'm sure there isn't an answer. I want children, I want a future, and the world that I'm living in scares me. We cover up paedophilia, we pump people with unknown substances. I read a story about a surgeon that messed up surgeries and has left people unable to control their bowels and is still working within the NHS. I want to help. I want to fight. So basically, thank you. Thank you for your honesty and bravery, very kind. And if there's any way I can help bring what's happening to the world to the eyes of the British people, I want to. I already know that when I have children, I'll be homeschooling them because I don't trust the government to educate them realistically. So yeah, I've probably rambled, but from what I can see, you're a decent woman standing up to the world. Thank you. Thank you to the lady that wrote that. And of course, anyone, just to reassure, emails me is always in absolute confidence. So I've shared the email. Clearly, I would never share names. I would never share personal details or anything that allows you, to be identified. The point is, this is what people are surround sound battling with out there. This is before people even try and leave their house in the morning. This is before people try and get themselves together, get in a shower, get some clothes on, maybe try and get to work, maybe try and cope with another problem in their lives. Before they even try and start their day, they're either being got at by someone calling them gay and homophobic and transphobic or whatever, or they're at a point where they're worried about themselves because they had the jab and now they do see people dying suddenly and they don't know what to do, and they're scared of the fact that the people they want to trust, they no longer trust. And I say all of this, not as the darkness. I say this so that we share these really, really important voices who, when they write like this lovely lady, are just laying it out there. I'm scared about people. I'm scared about people in medical professions because they're still there and they're lying to us. I'm scared about what's going on with the vaccine. Now I see what's happened with the unexplained deaths. This is what people are, this is the world we're up against. But let me tell you, because we never leave things on a darkness, that I always have faith that we do win this thing. And for me, how I've dealt with the tsunami of hatred over 20 years or so, essentially has always been to try and process it, to work through what's the bit of it that really hurts, to try and understand. Some of that is undoubtedly justified. Like if I've upset someone, they want to bite back, and that's understandable. And maybe when they've bitten back, it's been hurtful, but that's because they wanted to hurt. And then when it comes to it, and sometimes in the darkest moments of all, the way that I've got through stuff, like when I received the CUNT award and was humiliated when I thought I was going to help stand with the white farmers of South Africa, but is knowing who I am. And so really that would be my advice back to this lovely gentleman, Chris here, who's asking for advice. My advice is to walk in a field alone sometime and remember who you are. Because as long as you know you're a good person, as long as you wouldn't hurt anyone, and you know that, I know I'm a good person, then it doesn't really matter what they say. Those are their labels. Let them own them. And you carry on and you do you. Okay, my darlings, we will be back here the same time tomorrow, bringing more of the fire. Keep trying to break the chat, tntradio.live. I will see you same time, same place tomorrow. My name is Katie Hopkins, and this is TNT Radio.